I was trying to give you a background so that at least you see where this document is coming from, and we are going to discuss what that document does. So we are saying, after the bidding process, we reach a point where we appoint a successful bidder, and that one is the one that we now discuss one-on-one. Then at the end of the discussion, there are some documents that we exchange, and one of the documents is the contract document now. The document that now binds the two parties together. But beside that document, there is also another document, and this one we call it a statement of work. So that's what we're discussing. If I was to define this one, I would say the statement of work is a legally binding document that defines all the work management aspects of your project. In other words, this document, the statement of work, outlines the scope, objectives, and requirements of project management. So, it is a legally binding document that captures and so you are disturbing your friend. Yeah, so leave those notes. By sending, I didn't mean that the notes should disturb us, we should not listen. Otherwise, nestika na bwere. Nango banga in advance pangi loti kamaliza muna ndiyo wala usakupasa niso. So let's discuss first, then notes zote zona pamboa. Okay, so I was saying, this is a legally binding document that captures and defines all the work or the work management of the project in question. So, what does it contain, this document? It outlines the scope of the work to be done, the objectives, and of course the requirements of the project management. In other words, it is a document that tells you in details what you are supposed to do, you as a contractor. So normally it talks about the scope of the work and some other requirements that are required, that are expected from you. Is a statement of work. And this one is different from the contract document. Now, at what point does this document appear? This document can be issued by the client, giving it to the contractor before the signing of the contract, so that the contractor or the successful bidder fully understands whatever is supposed to be done, and if anything, ask questions. Upon getting satisfied, then he proceeds to sign the contract. But at times, in some situations, this document can still be issued to the contractor even after the signing of the contract. So either way, it works. But the bottom line is, it outlines the scope and how the contract should be implemented. So beside the contract document, this document also is considered to be very critical, very important, because it defines as exactly how the work is going to be done. So this doesn't mean that this successful bidder, throughout the time he was sending his proposals, applying for this job and all, he didn't understand the scope. Yes, he might have understood the scope and what he was supposed to do through the IFB that he had seen earlier. But still more, this statement of work details now, puts everything into finer detail. So, most of the times, this statement of work is deployed when the two independent parties desire to work together towards a mutual completion of a work, project, or goal. There are two interested parties, a client and a contractor. Now these two, they have agreed to work together. For them to be successful in what they are doing, at least they need to have this document as something to guide them. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, but then I have a question. So is this statement of work issued by the client or the contractor?
Most of the times is issued by the client, because it is the client who is advising the contractor as in what he is expecting the contractor to do. So most of the times, there are some exceptional cases, we'll see those exceptional cases, but in most of the times, it is the client now, because he is the one who is expecting this one to do his work. So, this statement of work must be written in plain language, one, to ensure mutual understanding and at least provide clarity. It should be clear. So it's me, a client, who is communicating with my contractor here. At least I need to write in a plain language, which is less ambiguous, for easy understanding, so as to avoid future misunderstandings. Because if it is not clear and we are now swinging into action without actually fully understanding, there are chances that we may end up into misunderstanding and disputes in future. So at least this document has to be very, very clear. So we are saying this document helps reducing disputes by setting expectations from the start and allows for budgeting and cost control, since it is written in details. I was saying this document helps in reducing disputes by setting what? By setting expectations from the start and allows for budgeting and cost control, since it details all the costs associated with the project upfront. So the bottom line here is it provides all the details regarding what this client is looking for. Therefore, everybody is so sure of the expectations, what they are expecting as they proceed. Therefore, the disputes, the chances of having misunderstandings and disputes are always reduced. Now, when we look at statement of work and the scope of work, the two are different. It is possible that we can end up confusing that a statement of work and then the scope of work. Are these things not the same? They are similar to a certain extent, but they are different. Different in the sense that the statement of work is a comprehensive document which has details, whereas the scope of work is one of the components of the statement of work. So in the statement of work is a comprehensive document, as I'm saying. Then in it, we are also going to find a section which talks about the scope of the work to be done. So scope is smaller than is just part of the SOW. Now, this statement of work can be broken down into some categories. And I would love to mention 3 categories through which this SOW can be broken into. One, we have the design or design statement of work. Now, this is part of the statement of work that normally talks about the design or the expectations of the client in terms of the designs of what is supposed to be produced or supposed to be delivered. So that is one category of this Now, there is another, the second category of the we call that one the level of effort. So the level of effort, others call it time and unit rate. Others call it unit rate or time and material or level of effort Either way, this is a second category of this and is considered to be the most significant one. Then we have the third one, the performance-based 3 categories. But there are some tips that are given to people or clients that the clients should follow when they are trying to come up with a We want to write this document, and for you to manage to write this document, at least those tips can be of great help. And again, let me take this opportunity. I tried to also send you a template of the saw. When you find time, you will see, and at least you appreciate, you have an idea as in how this saw is written or is designed. And all the components that we are going to mention here are there in that template as well. Anyway, even before we look at that template, it's good for us to see some of the tips that can help us to come up with this saw. So here are some of the steps that you may need to follow when we want to design this saw. One, at least create a brief introduction of your project. When you are designing this saw statement of work, first you write an introduction of what this project is all about. Secondly, you define the purpose of your project, and you define the scope of the project. So that's why I said earlier that a scope is a component of the entire statement. So you have the statement and you have the scope in it. So you've written introduction, the purpose of what this project is all about, and of course the scope. Then after that one, you create the work breakdown structure of your project, including the tasks, milestones, deliverables, and of course create a schedule. After this one, creating a schedule, final step that one may be required to do is to define payment terms and conditions. Defining payment terms and conditions. So these are just tips that may get somebody, a client that is, when he's trying to come up with this statement of work to be issued to the contractor. Now, let's try to look at the components or things that need to be included in this saw. Here we were looking at the steps that you need to follow, but it can help us also to look at now the components. Okay, in the saw, there are many parts that are there in a project, and it is advisable to use a project management information system to help you manage these components. The first component of this saw is the introduction, which is actually the first step that we have just seen. We were looking at the steps that you follow when you are drawing this one. Now here we are reminded of the components. Then we are saying the first component is the introduction. So to begin with, as you are drawing that one, you explain what work is being done or is about to be done, the general information about the project, such as who is involved, the parties that are involved in that project, they need to be also mentioned in the introduction. For example, we can be talking about the financiers. This is also important to be mentioned. Some other stakeholders that are involved in the project, they also need to be mentioned. And this is the introductory part of this statement, the saw. Then there is another component. This one we call it the purpose statement. The purpose statement. Now, the purpose normally answers the question as in, why are we doing this? When we are talking about the purpose, if I ask you, what's the purpose of this? What we are saying is, why are you doing this? So, in the project that you are initiating, it's like you answer the question, why are you initiating this project? So, that's the purpose statement. So, why are you initiating this project, or what is the purpose of this project? You answer these questions implicitly in this statement. It's not that you ask each and every question and answer it right there and then. No, but implicitly you ask those questions and you answer them in that statement. So after this purpose statement, Another component also that needs to be there is the scope of work. The scope of work. The scope is all about what work is supposed to be done there and what are the limits. What are the extremes that you are not going beyond. So the work that needs to be done and its limit, these are what we call, this is what we call the scope. So if the work that you are delivering here, that you want, will involve probably whether software materials, hardware, or whatever materials, in the scope, these ones have to be mentioned. The materials that are likely going to be used, that you desire to be used in that project, at least they have to be also mentioned. That is in the scope of work. And here is another component. Where will the work be done? This one also has to be indicated clearly. We are assuming that you are hiring someone, you are contracting someone to do some works for you, to provide some services for you. It is possible that the services may not be provided here. He may need to be providing those services elsewhere. So the site where this work is to be done also has to be indicated in the statement of work to prepare the contractor accordingly. This is another component. Then the exact tasks to be performed during the implementation of the project, these tasks have to be highlighted accordingly. So that is the breakdown of the work. The tasks to be carried out, in other ways, we are talking about the breakdown of the work, and this has to be detailed. So on this one, the client is reminded to be very specific and don't leave out any action that's required in order to produce the deliverables. In order for the deliverables to be there, specific tasks have to be well defined and they have to be outlined clearly that this is supposed to be done, that one is supposed to be done, that one is supposed to be done, in order for the deliverables to come by. So do not leave out anything. The other component that is supposed to be there is the milestones. So at least define the amount of time that is scheduled in order to complete the project. At least the milestones, the milestone or the time to be taken has to be also indicated accordingly. So this one is a bit similar to the schedules. We are going to see also the schedules as a component. Most importantly, a client will always be interested to see his work delivered. When you are initiating something and you are hiring somebody to help you putting up whatever you want, at the end of the day, all you are interested to see is the delivery of what you want. So what you are expecting from this one, regardless of how it is going to be done, just timelines, whatever sketch, but you want something to be done and you have to indicate clearly that this is what I'm expecting from you. So the other component here are the deliverables. What are you expecting this client to deliver? This contractor to deliver to you as a client. So at least you need to define and list them down in that document clearly. Those deliverables, they have to be delivered. You have to be indicated that this is what we are expecting, and at least bring them out in details, those deliverables in finer details. It will help. So another important component here is the schedule now. That's why at times when a particular project is being implemented, we see they will indicate that this project is going to be implemented at least from this date to this date, or at least within this particular period. That is a schedule. Because now, when you're initiating something, you want to start using that particular something. For example, if you are hiring somebody to erect a building, a structure, what you are looking for is to see that structure being erected, then so that you start using it. So at least you always have your time that you believe that once it is erected within this period, then after this period, I'll be now in a better position to start using it. So this one has to be indicated clearly, so that at least that one doesn't relax. So that, no, don't worry, no. The person amene akupanga uja azikhala kupanga udzoona kuti pali nthawi imene munthu afuna achitenge chinthuchi ayambe chigwiritsa ntchito. Okay, another component is standards and testing. Standards and testing. So if there are any industrial acceptance criteria or quality standards that need to be adhered to, list those on that document. There can be situations where, according to the industry you are in, there must be some criteria for the work to be accepted, or some standards to be met, or some testing to be undertaken in order for the work to be accepted. If there are those standards and the criteria, they have to be indicated and listed down on that document or in that document, so that this contractor, when he or she is implementing the project, he or she fully knows that at least I will need to meet these standards. Failure to meet these standards, maybe the work won't be accepted. And of course, at the end of the work shall have to be tested. At least this person must be notified. She or he must know this through this document they saw. Now, we are assuming that the testing process will involve certain parties. The testing process will involve certain parties. At least those parties have to be made known to this contractor. The contractor should know that at the end of the day, this work shall have to be tested, probably whether by Malawi Bureau of Standards, if they are amongst those that will be involved in the testing, or else the engineers board or whatever, if it is an engineering work, these people will be involved in testing the standards and so on and so forth. This is done so as not to take this contractor by surprise. He or she should know that at the end of the day, I shall have to undergo through this process. Nobody should be taken by surprise. So there is another component here. Define the project success. Define or indicate the project success. This project will only be successful if it will meet this and that, or if we see that we are able to observe that one and we are able to observe this, then we will say the project is a success. That one has to be defined properly in that document, so that once this person has implemented the project and is delivering the project, but if those indicators are not seen, then there's no success. And he should also know that without these indicators, then the client will say there is no success here. So the success of the project has to be defined correctly or accordingly. Then payment terms. Then there is payment terms. These ones also have to be indicated. And of course, the project requirements, some other requirements also have to be indicated. And there is maybe if there are some other things that need to be met by the contractor, you also have to indicate them. And of course, there is what we call closure. So in the closure, this is the part of the SOR that talks about how the deliverables will be accepted. The closure is the section or the part of the SOR that determines how the deliverables will be accepted, who is going to deliver, who is going to review, and of course sign off the deliverables. Okay. So by reaching this far, we can say the SOW can be seen as some document which will help both of you, the client and the contractor, to manage the project. Mind you, I've always said this times without number, that the management of a project lies in the hands of both parties, the contractor as well as the client. So while the contractor is performing his tasks as expected, the client is also always there to observe and monitor whether this contractor is performing his tasks according to the expectations of the client. So in essence, both of them are involved in the management of this project. Therefore, this document now acts as a manual, something which is guiding both of them. Basically, it is guiding the contractor, because already the client knew that this is what I want. So he only put whatever he wants on the paper, and the paper is now being used by the contractor, the other side. So meaning that both of them are on the same page and should be on the same page. So by adhering to what is contained in that document, there are high chances that the project will be implemented successfully without much disputes, because now both of them will be saying no, komatu tunali limodzi pamalopa mene twapanga chinthu chicha, and timatsatira step by step tonse tili limodzi. However, there can be some errors, some mistakes that can derail the project through this document. If this document has some problems, there are high risks that the project can derail. So let's just try to see some risks associated with this statement of work, or SOW. Okay, so now we are saying, while this is SOW, or the statement of work, can be seen as an effective and powerful tool when it comes to the implementation of the project, there are still some problems that if they are there with that document, the project can be affected in one way or the other, or the implementation of the project can be affected in one way or the other. If there are errors or some problems with the SOW, there can be issues of misunderstandings and even disputes. So, for example, one of the risks that are associated with the SOW is the misalignment of the expectations due to inaccurate SOW. You have expectations as a client, but now as you are drafting this SOW, you are mispresenting what you're expecting. So the client, the contractor, will interpret it differently. Now you find that at the end of the day, it is the SOW which is misleading, or which misled this contractor. So the contractor will do things in his own way, as opposed to what the client was expecting. But this can be as a result of mispresented SOW. So this is a risky. So to avoid that, at least both parties, or all the parties involved, need to ensure that the document is as clear and concise as possible before any work begins. So the document has been issued to the contractor here. The contractor should not just say, okay, basi tamfataona chimenechi, tuonana papa. Or else the client should not say, takupa sani rate, okay, tuonana. Should not go that way. These people must come together and examine the document so that each one of them fully understands what is there. Alright, so tewagabaza mafuta amene amapezeka document imeneyi iyo titozona kuti yachisokoneza kuzochitika. So to avoid that, at least both parties must understand this document before they start the work. Another risk even in our car and delivery schedules. So, if the statement of work does not contain enough details about what services or materials will be needed, it will be difficult to determine how long the project will take and how much it will cost. So, at least this thing has to be as detailed as possible. Another risk also that is there is the lack of sufficient information regarding how many revisions shall have to be taken by the client before he accepts the project or he accepts the work as it is being delivered. That one can also be a mistake, and that mistake can lead into misunderstandings. Another mistake happens most of the times when this thing is being signed before or after the signing of the contract. So it is important that at least this document has to be adopted or has to be issued before a contract is signed, so that when the contractor is signing this contract, he fully understands what is expected of him. There is also a risk of assigning responsibility or risk inappropriately when creating a SOR. A risk of assigning responsibility or a risk inappropriately when creating a SOR. So, all involved parties need to understand exactly who holds responsibility for different outcomes related to the project. A SOR is prepared by the client. There can be chances of biasness in that regard, in such that he says, when this and this and that happens, you, the contractor, will be held responsible. Now, when a problem arises, fights will arise. People, these two parties will be saying, no, me, I'm not supposed to, this is not my responsibility, no, it is your responsibility, no, it's not my responsibility, and so on and so forth. So, to avoid all these unnecessary disputes and tensions, it is good that after drafting this is so, both parties must also clearly understand whose responsibility is this going to be, and whose responsibility is this going to be, who's going to be held responsible here and who's going to be held responsible there. At least both should be clear, so that should something happen, we are not going to see those unnecessary fights. So that the failure to assign these responsibilities appropriately leads into unnecessary tensions, disputes that will delay the implementation of the project. This is okay. Atubere and you, Sharon, I need two of you.
This is not detailed. What? This is not detailed. Yeah, that's why we have to hurry up. So I explain. Okay. So yes.
Yeah, no, don't go outside. I will need just 2 minutes with you and make you feel more so. Talking here. No, James will kill me, and it's my brother. My wife is James. My wife and James were classmates. If at test mates for that matter, at JMI. So that's how I came to know Jem. So when I was dating that girl, so she introduced me to Jem. This was my intention. So I started dating her a long time ago. 2016, when we were both in college. She was doing her masters, I was doing my bachelor's. How? We just met by chance. So she was a postgrad in the University of her masters. How? Tell me. How did you give up? That's quite a boy. 2016? Basi tukawa na issues. Yeah, I was so sick. Because I had been in failed relationships. Was maybe her also maybe she was our own situations, right? So this time around I was